Alright, we have a Duskmourn set review here for limited and using the limited resources grading scale because I think it's great. And A's are the absolute best bombs in the set, like Season of Loss. B's are super good cards that push very hard in that direction, and they always make your deck, and they are oftentimes incredibly strong removal or efficient creatures like Vine Rip Mentor. These are the cards that you're almost never happy or unhappy to put in your deck, but you always have a lot of them in your deck because that's how craft works. What's it called? The Stick Tank Sentinel. These are kind of mediocre cards that sometimes make your deck like conduct electricity, and Fs are completely unplayable cards like Rest in Peace. Alright, start with Acrobatic Cheerleader, 1 right for a 2/2. It has survival, so at the beginning of your second main phase, if it is tapped, you put a flying counter on it and it triggers only once. Though double flying counters doesn't do anything. So this is a card that if you're on the play and get a hit in, it will then become a 2/2 flyer permanently. If you can't get a hit in for a good cause, it's not very good. It's just a 2/2 for 2. So it's a little bit, if you're ahead, it gets even better. And a 2-mana 2/2 flyer is good, but it's not that insane, and especially later in the game, or if you can't get it through, it's just a 2/2 for 2. I think this is a C-, it's a pretty replaceable card. I wouldn't be very happy to play it, but it's never terrible because it's at least a 2/2 for 2 that can be decent, but I think it's a C-. Cult Healer, 2 white for 3/3, has Eerie whenever an enchantment you control enters. Whenever you fully unlock a room, it gains lifelink at the end of turn. So 3/3 for 3 that sometimes gets lifelink is an okay card. It's not a card that's that great, but the 3 life is kind of a big deal. If you think about this as a 3/3 that gains you 3 life when it comes into play, it becomes a little bit better. If you can gain 6, it's awesome. Sometimes you will get 0 because either you don't gonna draw enchantments or you don't have a good attack. I think this is another C-, sort of a replaceable card. But in a heavy blue-white Eerie deck, I can bump it up to a C. The problem is that this is not itself an enchantment, so it's a little bit of a payoff, but it doesn't really fully make the wheels grease. If it were an enchantment itself, it would be much better. Alright, now we have the first room here, and it's Dazzling Theater or Prop Room. And the way rooms work is they're sort of like a fuse spell, which means they're like a fire ice type card, but you can cast both sides, and you can cast them in any order you like. So if this is an ability that's more powerful than split cards because you can cast the first and then choose the later second. So you have a lot more flexibility. You can basically cast them the same way, cast them both in the same turn, unless your opponent's got an instant speed removal if one of the rooms has a triggered ability. But for the most part, it's a very powerful ability. So it's either 3 white creature spells you cast have Convoke. I wouldn't want to spend a card on that. It can do some good things, but you have to be have a hand that's basically all creatures. You have to have a lot of creatures in play, and then it can do something. The other is 2 white Prop Room. Untap each creature you control during each other play's untap step. So all your creatures gain vigilance, and you can also like Convoke during your turn, and then have them available to block. I think this is an F. I don't think it's gonna do anything in limited. You're spending an entire card and a ton of mana to add some mana, but you're not getting a card out of this for the most time. Maybe there is some combo you can do with it, with like you have some insane, a bunch of cards that do have some great tap abilities, and then you can tap them during your turn and do it again. But I think this is an F, and I don't think it's gonna be very good in constructed either. Okay, next we have another room, and it's either Dollmaker's Shop and or Porcelain Gallery, and it's a mythic rare. Dollmaker's Shop is 1 white for whenever one more non-toy creatures you control attack a player, you get a 1 white toy artifact creature token. That's great because that creature is not tapped and attacking, which is usually an upside because you can have them available blocks. If you attack your opponent trade off and you don't have any other creatures, you will stop making toys, but eventually we will get it back, and you can see this easily making like 2 or 3 tokens during the course of the game. And then you have the option of Porcelain Gallery, which you can cast later or first if you draw it later in the game. 4 white creatures you control have base power and toughness each equal to the number of creatures you control. That's almost always going to upgrade your creatures because unless you have like only one creature in play and that's a big one. But for the most part you are bumping up your creatures and your toys are also getting big. And the fact you got a bunch of toys also pumps this up. I think this card is very good. I don't think it quite gets to an A because it has a little bit of a setup and it's kind of expensive. You don't want to only cost Porcelain Gallery, but it has a lot of good stuff. We play it early, get a bunch of tokens, and maybe prolong the game. So I think it's a B+, it's a very good card. It's a little annoying that if you want to maximize the second room, the Porcelain Gallery, you don't want to jump with your 1/1s to trade them off. So you kind of have to treat them as fragile objects, which takes away a little bit of the do stuff. But I can also see this card, you play it early, get a bunch of toys, and then later in the game you just flip this and it's insane. So I think it's a B+, and it's a very good card. Emerge from the Cocoon, 4 and a white for a sorcery. Return to our creature card from your grave to the battlefield, you gain free life. Now I love the fact that you gain free life as a bonus, because usually these 5 mana bring a creature back is not very good, but a free life matters a lot. Whenever you get a little bit of a bonus on top of that, we had to fossilize from I think it was Lost Caves, and that was a good card. And every time you're getting a little bit extra, I'm more interested. I still don't think it's a more awesome card, but I think in a deck you can put cards in your grave. We have all those land cyclers, remember? So I'm thinking black-white could possibly use this. And then it's like a C. I wouldn't pick it very highly because I think I can get it late. And in a deck that doesn't really put creatures in the graveyard, have mostly small creatures, I think it's like a D more. But I think it's gonna be played sometimes as a C. Oh man, here we have a very good card. Enduring Innocence. 1 white for a 2/1 enchantment creature. It has lifelink, and whenever one more other creature control power 2 or less enter, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. I can imagine you getting like 2 cards out of this, maybe even 3, because the thing about this card is that it has another ability, and when it dies, it comes back as an enchantment, so then it's not a creature. But one other problem with these types of cards is they are small, you don't want to trade them off in combat, but this card you can just trade with. If your opponent is attacking you with like a free 2, you can just trade it off and still have the ability. So I think this is an insanely good card. And the lifelink also helps you survive to use the extra effect on the card. And you're not going to draw completely crazy. It's not like whenever any creature enters, then it would be absurd. But I think this is an A-. I just think that if you play this card on turn 3, you're gonna almost always win the game, because you're gonna get a lot of value from this card. And the 2 on lifelink for free also means that you're gonna get a little bit of a life buffer to use them. So A-, very good card. Next, reprint, Ethereal Armor, white mana for an aura. Enchant creature, enchant creature is +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, has first strike. When this works, it can be very good, but it also opens you up for being 2/1s, and it's also some spots it's not going to even give you that much of a bonus. I'm going to start low on this card. It could have a good home because it also has triggers all the enchantments with, but this is not the type of card I want to trigger Eerie with. I want to trigger Eerie it like an enchantment creature, and if I have to spend a card and put some risk in, I'm not that happy about it. So I'm going to start Ethereal Armor as a D, but I could also be proven wrong. And it's a type of card that works very good if you got like a lot of other enchantment creatures, but because then you don't have to like spend resources to build this up to be good. But even if you got a lot of enchantment, you will still get 2/1 sometimes. So I'm starting at D, but it could be good. Exorcise, 1 and a white. Exile target artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater. So it's very similar to like the card from Murders at Call of Manor. I think it was called Make Your Own Luck or something. And that card was not terrible, but not great either. And this one is a sorcery. It's 1 mana cheaper, but yeah, I think I'm gonna probably start 1 in the main deck because of Eerie, because I think that you're gonna have a lot of targets for the enchantment part, and the power 4 greater also comes up sometimes. I think it's a C-. I don't think it's a great card, because whenever you have this card and it doesn't have a good target, you're very unhappy. But can be good. Still not gonna be more than a 1/1 most of the time though. because of the sorcery speed nature of it. Here we have a enchantment creature, so this is probably more good to make me get eerie. Fear of Abduction, 4 white for a 5/5 flyer. As an addition cost, you cast a spell, exile a creature you control, so you have to spend a creature to cast this. But when it enters, you exile target creature an opponent controls. So you are actually even. You spend a creature and you get your opponent's best creature. So you're even in creatures, but you got to throw away your worst card to get your opponent's best card. But when it leaves the battlefield, put each card exile with it into its owner's hand. So that's very good because it means that you can't really get 2 for 1. If you play this, spend a creature, you get your opponent's creature. You at the very least get your creature back. You want to target something of your own that's cheap and expendable or has a constant play effect, because then if your opponent kills this, you get that effect again. I think this card is good though. I think that I would be very happy on turn 6 to cast this, get your opponent's best thing, and you're not even, because if you exile something expensive, then your opponent still has to spend the mana to cast it, so you head on that exchange too. I think this is a B. Very good top end card for any white deck. I don't think you need to be an eerie deck to play. Okay, another fear card here. Fear of Immobility. 4 and a white for 4/4. When it enters, tap up to 1 target creature, and if opponent controls that creature, put a stun counter on it. And the reason you want to tap your own creatures is because of survival. I think this card is okay. I remember Petrifying Meddler in a very powerful Modern Horizons Edge being just okay. This is presumably a less powerful format. This also doesn't have reach. And I don't think that tapping your own thing is that big of a deal. I think it's C minus though. The fact that this doesn't have a keyword is a little annoying. It doesn't have any reach. It is an enchantment creature, so C minus to C maybe in an eerie deck. Fear of Surveillance. Well, who doesn't have Fear of Surveillance? 1 on the right for 2/2 Vigilance. When it attacks, surveil 1. Alright. Another card that's fine. I don't really love to have like a attack effect on a 2-mana. 2/2, and it's not even that powerful of an effect. But you will probably play this in an eerie deck. I think it's another C minus, kind of a replaceable card. Nothing of this sort of effect really stands out to me as being awesome. But it has very great art though. Creepy too. Friendly Ghost, 3 and a white for a 2/4 flyer. When it enters, target creature gets +2/+4 on its land of turn. So that enables attacks. Obviously does nothing on defense, but it looks, I'm giving a lot of C minuses so far, but if it's just another C minus. A 4-mana 2/4 flyer is not that great. The ability is nice, but it's just a one-time thing. You will get an attack through sometimes that you couldn't have, but there are also going to be spots where the +2/+4 does nothing because you have nothing in play or you don't want to attack anyway. So I think it's another C minus. Yeah. Ghostly Dancer, we have a rare here. 3 white for a 2/5 flyer. That's a little overcosted, but there is more stuff here. Whenever it enters, return an enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand or unlock a locked door or room you control. I'm mostly looking to get back an enchantment, but if you have a room with a very expensive backside, it could also be very good. But it also has area whenever an enchantment you control enters, and whenever you finally unlock a room, you get a 3/1 spirit creature token with flying. So that could happen if you unlock a room. Okay, that makes me more interested in the unlocking a room part, because then you're getting a 3/1 with flyer permanently. Doesn't go away when this leaves. This card just seems awesome. I mean, either it's a 5-mana 2/5 Gravedigger, or it unlocks a room and you're getting another creature. I think it's A minus again. I think this is more powerful than the 2-mana room, but they work pretty good together though. But this card is just very good because a high toughness flyer that gives you card advantage is pretty much a very good combination because it makes it hard for you to die and then you're getting card advantage too. Alright, Glimmer Seeker. 2 white for a 3/3 with survival. At the beginning of the second main phase, this is tap. Draw a card if you control a Glimmer creature. If you don't control a Glimmer creature, you get a 1/1 Glimmer enchantment creature token. I gotta be honest, I don't know how many Glimmer cards there are from that, but this one gives you a 1/1 the first time, and then the second time it gives you a card. It seems like a kind of card you want to find a way to tap it, because it's gonna be hard for a 3/3 to get in turn after turn. Because once you get the 1/1, you're getting a card, but I still think it's a fine card because it's a free for free that your opponent has to respect. Your opponent can't attack too aggressively if you have this because then they're gonna get buried. So I think it's a C plus actually. I think that assuming you have some way to tap it yourself, you're gonna get paid off. And if not, it has a little bit of a scroll feed vibe where your opponent has to be a little bit nervous about allowing you to attack with a kind of card like this. Okay, we have another room here. This one is uncommon, I believe. It's Grand Entryway. 1 and a white for a room. You unlock this door, you get a 1/1 glimmer. There's a glimmer immediately. 2 mana for a 1/1 fly is not good. I would not be happy about that even in an eerie deck. Next is Elegant Rotunda, 2 and a white. When you unlock this room, put a +1/+1 on each up 2 target creatures. Okay, so this could be like a 5 mana 3/3 flyer. That's like the worst path. It could also be a 5 mana 1/1 flyer that puts counters on something. It could also be 3 mana, put 2 counters on stuff, and then later you get a 1/1. So it has a lot of flexibility. I don't think any of these modes are super insane, but I can see this card doing some work. I don't think this is an absurd card. I think it's a little too expensive, but I see a lot of flexibility here where sometimes you want to put the counters first, sometimes you want to get the 1/1, and sometimes you just want to go. I mean, you could go turn 2 this turn 3 2 counters. Then you have a 3/3 flyer that you have to spend 5 mana on, but on turn 3 attacking with a 3/3 flyer is pretty good. So I'm gonna give this a C+. I think that it has a lot of good things going for it, and it also is a room which could give you additional synergy. So C+ for that card. I think it's a little too mana intensive to get a higher grade. Hardnet Escort, 2 and a white for a 2/4. When it attacks another target creature you control, get +1/+0 and gains indestructible until end of turn. This card does not seem very good, but it has high toughness. It gives you a good attack bonus. I think this is just another C-. I think even D+. It's not an enchantment. It does that. It only attacks for 2 by itself. I guess it enables survival, but this looks like a very slow way to enable survival. So I think I'm gonna give it a C-. Not excited. Jump Scare, white mana for an instant. You pump up a creature +2/+2, gains flying, and becomes an enchantment. So it will give you eerie. It will be an enchantment after that. So white mana for +2/+2 and gains flying. That's a little pushed. We haven't seen that effect too much. It usually costs 2 mana with a Mighty Leap, but yeah, I think this is a C. I remembered in the last set Crumb Get It being good, and this one can't gain indestructible, but it will sometimes make up for that by giving you a face. It's not a flying counter though, so don't think that this is gonna get flying perpetually, but I think it's gonna do some work, and I think it's a C. Leyline of Hope. So we have a card that enters the battlefield. On the battlefield, you have it in your opening hand, which always makes these cards kind of hard to grade, because you kind of have to read this as if you don't have it in your opening hand, because sometimes you will draw it. If you would gain that much life +1 instead, and as long as you have 7 life more than your starting total creature control +2/+2. I don't think this card is good because it doesn't give you any way to gain life by itself. It helps you when you gain other sources of life, but you have to have other stuff. And let's say you draw this later in the game, and I'm not even thinking about the leyline thing, but what if your opponent has attacked you a bunch and you're down to like 12 life? You're never gonna get to 27, and then it's just a blank. So I think this is an F. The only time it's gonna be good if you have it in your opening hand, you have a bunch of ways to gain life, then it can be an anthem, but sometimes your opponent can also like make a big attack and take away the anthem. So, and then your creature will shrink in combat. So I think this is an F, unfortunately. Most Leylans actually are Fs in limited. I think. I don't think I remember a single Leyland being good in limited. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a Leyland be good in limited. Lionheart Glimmer. 3 white for a 2/5. It has ward 2. And whenever you attack creature, you control it +1/+1 until end of turn, which includes this. So it's a high toughness enchantment card that's harder to kill. It attacks and gives your creatures a bonus. I'm a little skeptical about this card. I just think that I don't think that an Eerie deck necessarily wants this type of card. I mean, it has a good effect. It's just that it itself is not is overcasted. Ward 2 means it's gonna be easy for you to attack. There is something here. I'm not sure it's great though. I'm gonna start C, but I could be proven wrong. I think it's gonna be a pretty threatening card, but there's also gonna be spots when you're behind. It's very bad, I think, because yes, it has ward, but it's only a 2/5, does nothing on defense more than that. So could be wrong, but I'm a little skeptical about that card. Living Foam, 2 and a white for a 2/1. When it dies, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You reveal a critical power 2 or less from among them and put it into your hand, the rest on the bottom. So 3 mana 2/1 that dies and draws you a small creature. Little selection. It is an artifact if that matters. I don't think this card is good. If this was a 3 mana 2/1 that dies, draws a card, it's not a great card. I don't even think a 3 mana 2/1 that draws a card when it enters is that good. It's probably fine, but I think this is a D. I don't think this card is very good. Because generally, you sometimes will trade, but sometimes you're also gonna whiff, and that's pretty bad. I guess if you've got a bunch of this, you can chain them, but still your opponent has to cooperate for that to happen. So I don't think this is a good card. I think it's a D. Optimistic Scavenger, white mana for 1/1 uncommon creature. Eerie, whenever an enchantment you control enters and whenever you unlock a room, put a +1/+1 counter on target creatures. This card I think is good because a 1/1 for 1 that's gonna spread around some count. This is a good card because you can play it on turn 1. Maybe it does something, maybe not, but then it's gonna spread around some count. So in an Eerie deck, I think this is a very good card. I will learn to respect cards like this. There was a card like in Kamigawa. I think it was called Generous Visitor, which ended up very good. So I think in a dedicated Eerie deck, this is a B. I think this is the kind of card that it's so cheap and it's gonna be very threatening and you don't have to spend a lot of mana on it. And that stuff even happens without paying any extra mana. So I respect this card. I'm gonna give it a B in an Eerie deck. And obviously if you have very few enchantments, it's probably unplayable. Orphans of the Wheat, 1 and a white for a 2/1. When it attacks, tap any number of untapped creatures you control. It gets +1/+1 for each creature tapped this way. This seems like a good payoff for a survival deck because then all your creatures can then get the triggers, and this is gonna probably survive combat then, which means that you don't have to throw away this card. So in a survival deck, I think this is actually a B minus, somewhere around that. It's still not a super great card because if you're using this ability, all your creatures are tapped. So you really need to make sure that you have survival cards, because if you attack with this, tap all other stuff, you're gonna probably get attacked back for a lot. And that could happen even if you got Eerie cards. But I think it's a B minus in a survival deck. Or a deck that has a lot of survival creatures. I don't think it's that good in a go wide deck actually, because you kind of want to attack with all creatures, not just one. But I guess it's way worse than Exalt, this ability, because you have to tap your creature. Oh man, here we have one of the cycles of the impending cards. This is Overlord of the Mistmourns, 5 white for a 6/6. It has impending, which basically means you can suspend it for 4 mana. And then you have to wait 4 turns. And this one is actually in play while you do that. So you will get the first trigger here. Whenever Overlord of the Mistmourns enters or attacks, you get 2 white insect creature tokens which fly. So you can spend 4 mana, get 2/2/1 flyers, and that's almost already a good card. I mean, I think 4 mana for 2/2/1 flyers is a playable Magic card. It's probably around the par of the one that makes 2/2/2s, maybe even a little better. Block worse, but has evasion. But then it also will, in 4 turns time, become this 6/6, and it will have haste because it was already on the battlefield. And then it also has the flexibility of casting this for 7, and then it's a 6/6 plus 2 on flyers. I think this is an A. I think this is an absurd card that's also flexible. I think this, if this costed 7, was a 6/6 that made 2/2/1 with flyers, it would be awesome. It's like the I'm making a lot of comparisons, but you remember like Isoni, the 6 mana 4/4 that made 2/2/1s, and this one is only 1 mana more. You don't even have to collect evidence, and you also have the flexibility of casting this for 4 mana. So I think this is an A. Could it actually be an A plus? Yeah, I think the flexibility makes this an A plus actually. Patched Plaything, 2 and a white for 4 free. It has a double strike and it ends with 2-1 counters on it if you cast it from your hand. So you want to cheat this into play from the graveyard or blink it, or like, yeah, blinking and reanimating mostly. I don't think impending is a thing this set. You could also, there is the ability of the Manifest Dread. This also works with Manifest Dread. So if you cheat this quote unquote into play, it's a fantastic card. 3 mana 4/3 double circle is just absurd in limited. If you don't, it's not that good. A 2/1 double striker for free is not that good of a card. It's not an unplayable card, but I think the fact of the matter is that sometimes this is going to be an absurd card and sometimes it's going to be an okay card. Makes this a B. I think this is a card you will be very happy to play if you got, but you need some ways to cheat into play. If it's Manifest Dread or Reanimate, or like I think reanimating this for the 5 mana common is a fine deal. You get a 4/3 double striker and gain 3 life. A 4/3 double striker is probably worth at least 5 or 6 mana. So I think in a deck that can cheat it into play manifested, it's a B. Otherwise it's more like a C-. Because a 2/1 double striker for free is not that good of a card these days. Possessed Goat, white mana for a 1/1. You can pay 3, discard a card, put 3 counters on it, and it becomes a black demon. It does not gain flying though. Activate only once. It is a 1-drop, but spending a card to make it a 4/4 is nice, but if it got flying it would probably be too good, but I think this is a C- again. I don't think it's a great card. I like the fact you can play it on turn 1 and it's relevant later, but you also have to discard a card, so if your opponent trades for it or kills it, it is a 2/1. So I'm not that high on it. I think it's a C-. Next one, I can't believe they made this art. It's just, this doesn't look like a magic card. Anyway, Reluctant Role Model, 1 and a white for a 2/2. Survival at the beginning of your second main phase. If it is tapped, put a flying lifelink or +1/+1 counter on it. So you have to choose one, but it will then have an easier time to get more survival counters on it if you give it flying first. Now whenever it or another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to one target creature. So it's a little Feast or Famine because you play it, your opponent kills it, you get nothing. But if you can get this one attacked or tapped once, it starts becoming a great. I still can't believe this art. I can't believe they made this art. It looks like a, I don't know. Anyway, I think the card is good, but it's not like a super high bomb. I think it's a B. And you want to enable survival with this really badly, because if you have to rely on this to attack, you may not be that happy, because it may not, your opponent's gonna do a lot of ways to stop that. Any 2/2 will do, and so if you're building around it, it's a B, but otherwise it's more like a C+, a 2/2 for 2 that it's very threatening, but your opponent can probably deal with. Savior of the Small, 3 and a white for a 3/4, uncommon, survival. Return to a creature card with mana value 3 or less from graveyard to your hand. Alright. It's not a card that's gonna be. You're not always gonna be able to attack with it, or you're not always gonna have a target, but when you do, it's pretty nice. It's a 2/1 or even a 3/1 that gives you a real card back. And works kind of nice with some combat tricks we've seen. The +2 and +2 and flyer seems good with this. And yeah, I think it's a C+, somewhere around that. Ceased from Slumber, instant 4 and a white. This spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a tapped creature. Destroy target creature. So either 5 mana, kill anything, or 2 mana, destroy a tapped creature. Yeah, seems like a fine card. I mean, it's expensive, but sometimes it will cost 2. I think it's another C-. So many C-. But the thing is 5 mana, destroy creature is just so expensive that you're not happy about it. But sometimes it's cheap, which saves the card from a mediocre card. So it's C-. Shard Mage Rescue, white mana for a flash aura, and it only returns a creature you control, and if it enters this turn, the creature has hexproof +1/+1. I kind of like this card. It's like a snakeskin veil, basically, but even better because, in some sense, because you have an aura in play that counts for eerie. and it triggers Eerie when it comes into play. I think this is a C+. I think that Snakeskin Veil is about a C+. It was about a C+ in Outlaws, and presumably this effect is a little worse in white, because green has these huge value creatures that you want to protect, like these big 4/4s, 5/4s, 3/3s with reach that you really want to protect, and white usually is less interested in that, but I think it's going to be a C+ anyway. Sheltered by Goys, another aura that can only enchant a creature you control. When it enters, exile target non-permanent opponent controls until this leaves. Enchant creature +1/+1 has lifelink and War 2. I think this card is awesome. Yes, you will get 2 for one sometimes, but the War 2 really helps. And you can even play this, get a couple of attacks in, and your opponent deals with it, but you got a bunch of lifelink swings. And auras are not always that easy to deal with. Your opponent can kill the creature eventually, but they also need to have it. So I think this card is great, and if you take a token, they don't get it back. So I think it's a B. I think it's going to be a great card. It also depends a little bit how cheap and efficient the removal is, but just be aware if you're playing against white, maybe you don't want to attack into a Cease for Slumber. You want to have your opponent spend 7 mana, which is almost going to be impossible some amount of the time. So it's also going to range about in the matchup, but I think most of the time it's a B. Because when you put this on like a flyer, take away your opponent's creature and got to start attacking with lifelink, you're gonna be a very good way of winning the game. Shepherding Spears, we have the first land cycler here. 4 white for a 4/5 flyer. That's Planeswalking 2. Not too excited about this one, because I remember cycling for 2 was pretty bad in March of the Machine, and a 6 mana 4/5 is not great. It's nice with the Reanimate card, I suppose, but I think this is a D+. It looks mediocre to me. I don't think either the halves, the Planeswalking or the casting, is going to be that good. It's not an enchantment, which I think they could have made it, but it doesn't work with survival. It doesn't have anything to do with rooms. Yeah. Alright, next we have a rare split up. 1 white. Choose one. Destroy all tapped creatures or destroy all untapped creatures. Oh man, I think this card is just awesome. I think that you're gonna have ways to make this card be insane, because and mostly it's destroy all tapped creatures that are going to be absurd, because your opponent attacked you, destroy all tapped creatures, you destroy none of yours. I don't think you're going to get to destroy all untapped creatures a lot of the time, but when that's going to happen is when your opponent just played a good creature and you then you attack through that or so. Maybe it's a little harder to do that. But I think the mode of destroying all tapped creatures is going to be you can have that to destroy none of your creatures. So I think this is a B. I think it's a very good card. Sometimes it's going to be a little awkward because your opponent may not even have my opponent may have creatures you don't want to kill, or have creatures that doesn't attack. And then if you choose to destroy all untapped creatures, you're going to lose some of your creatures because you can't attack into those. So there's going to be some awkward spots. But I think the mode of destroying all tapped creatures is the one that's going to break this card and make it insane sometimes. And that's enough for me to give it a B. Split Skin Doll, 1 and a white for a 2/1. When it enters, draw a card, then discard a card unless you control another creature with power 2 or less. Okay. I mean, it's a 2 mana 2/1 that loots at the worst. That's fine. Not great, but sometimes you're going to be a 2/1 draw card. And it's not that hard to have a creature with power 2 or less. It's not going to happen on turn 2, but these types of cards you don't even want to play on turn 2 some amount of time, because you don't even know what you want when you loot. I think it's a good card. I'm going to give it a C+, because, and that's a range. Sometimes it's fine, and sometimes it's going to be great. And the range gives it a C+. Alright, we have a room here. Surgical Suit, 1 and a white. When you unlock this door, return to a creature card with mana while 3 or less from graveyard to the battlefield. Fine. I'm not sure I would be excited to play that, but a 3 mana room that gets something back and then stays into play, maybe pays you off for some room, could be okay. But also this Hospital Room, 3 and a white. When you attack, put a +1/+1 on target attacking creature. Alright, that's fine. That seems expensive, but nice gravy. And the first mode means you have an easier time having a creature in play. I think this package is around the C plus again. This is not like a Luminarch Aspirant though, it's a way worse. You may think, oh, this is Luminarch Aspirant again, or Innkeeper's Talent. No, because this one is like 4 mana aura. That's way less good. And the effect here is not nowhere near as good as on having it on a creature or like Innkeeper's Talent that gives you other stuff too. But I think this is a C plus. Good card, because I think that the second mode makes it be a real card, unlike some of the other reanimate stuff. Hobie, Beastie Befriender, 2 and a white for a 1/1. When it enters, you get a 4 for which this creature can't attack or block alone. And as long as you have 4 more creature tokens you control are flying. It's gonna be hard to have 4 tokens. It's gonna happen sometimes, then it's gonna be awesome. But I think I like this card because a 4/4 that can't attack or block alone would be almost like a good card by itself, and this gives you a 1/1 which either this enables 1 attack, and sometimes you're not even gonna feel the downside. And note that if this leaves play, the creature token still can only attack or block alone. So, but I think this is a great card. I think it's a B plus. I think that a 4 mana 4/4 that can't attack or block alone is a fine deal, and then this comes with a 1/1. And then it has a last ability, which could also be nice. So B plus, good card. Trapped in the Screen. Aren't most people these days trapped in the computer screen? 2 and a white for an enchantment. It has Ward 2. When it enters, exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment and opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. I think the fact that we have Ear in this set makes this a good card. It also is like a Banishing Light that has Ward 2. Can take Planeswalkers, but that's not a big deal. In limited, and it can take rooms because rooms are enchantments, if that's a thing. Anyway, I think it's a C plus. I think that Banishing Light has come down, but the Eerie plus the Ward means that it's way better than Banishing Light. I think Banishing Light was around a C, and this is a C plus. Unidentified Hover Ship. It's like an UFO. 1 white 2/2 flying vehicle. When it enters, exile up to 1 target creature with toughness 5 or less. Wow, and that just happens. Oh no, it comes back. The exile card's owner manifests threat. Oh, it doesn't come back, but your opponent gets a slightly better 2/2. It's either a 2/2 or slightly better if your opponent can flip it up. It has crew 1, which is very nice. I think this card is good though, because even when your opponent deals with this, you're presumably going to most of the time downgrade a creature. And this is not also the easiest card to get rid of, because if you suspect your opponent has creature removal, you just don't crew it. I think it's a B. I think that it's a card that's going to be rock solid, but it's not a bomb. Because a 2/2 flying vehicle like crew 1 is not the best of cards, but it does other stuff too, so it's not a bad card. I'm just saying that it's not a bomb. Unsettling Twins. 3 and a white for a 2/2. When it enters, manifest dread. So this is like the Call the Cavalry type card. Manifest Dread is slightly better than 2/2 because you get to take the creature you can presumably flip up, and maybe you have some value getting the card to the graveyard. I think it's a good card. I think it's about C though. I don't think it's an awesome card. I think Call the Cavalry style cards are about C's, and this one is slightly better, but not that much, because some other time you're not going to find a creature, some other time you're going to find like a 2-drop that doesn't really do much when you manifest it. So. But it is nice with the double strike. Unwanted Remake. That's most remakes on movies are unwanted. White mana, destroy target creature, control and manifests dread. I think this is a bad card. It's mostly like the version we see where you destroy a creature, opponent gets a creature, and here it's even better. So I think this is a D-, pretty bad card. You can play it if you got like no other removal, and it's pretty good against insane bombs, but yeah, mostly I want to stay away from it. This card is unwanted too. Veteran Survival, white mana for 2/1, so already we're looking at a fine card here. It has Survival, exile up to 1 target card from a grave. That's not so good. But as long as 3 more cards are exiled with this, it gets +3/+3 and has hexproof. Okay, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen too much, but sometimes you play this early, get some attacks in. The problem is if you're casting this on turn 2, attack, you're not going to get to exile something. You can exile your cards from your own grave, off note though. I think it's a C+. I think it's a good card on turn 1 and later in the game. And also Graveyard Head can be good. But I don't think you're gonna expect like this card to be absurd. Next card is pretty absurd though. The Wandering Rescuer. 3 white for a 3/4 flash, double strike, convoke. And other top creatures you control have X-proof. So you can flash this in and save one of your creatures. You can flash this in and eat a creature. You can also convoke it, and then you can even save an untapped creature, which is pretty absurd. Your opponent kills your untapped creature, you convoke with that and cast this. You can come down on turn 3 if you're really lucky, and then on turn 4. I think it's an A. Doesn't get to A+ because sometimes it will just die to a removal spell, and that's all it does, but it's a very good card. And then it's an A.